Hey guys, the Lord here, back again with another edition of Throwback Thursdays, and today, I believe we are on number 23. We are ranking up the Throwback Thursdays, I must say, but today we're taking a look at the Hasbro / Kenner Small Soldiers Feed My Freakenstein. Come on in, cause it's feeding time, yeah! Freakenstein from Small Soldiers, continuing our looks at these Small Soldiers, Gorgonites in particular, because I got most of them complete, and I'm kind of biased towards the monsters anyways, you guys know that by now. I gotta tell you, this is a wacky one. This is probably the craziest thing I've ever reviewed on any channel I've ever had, and I've reviewed some wacky stuff. Have you seen the NECA Heroes of the Storm stitches? I reviewed it on my previous channel. Pretty wacky, but this guy definitely takes the cake for most WTF figures I've ever reviewed. That said, not a whole lot of action going on in this figure. And not a whole lot of able to buy this guy going on with this figure. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you go on eBay, there's not a lot. And the ones that are on there are super duper expensive. There's actually a variant of this guy with like a super red looking, it looks like a red Hulk arm stuck onto him. It's crazy. I don't recall what the variant is called necessarily, but it's super duper rare. It's like a few $100. It's crazy. This guy loose with almost no accessories, I think he had like one of the extra limbs, was like $70. Crazy. So I gotta give a shout out to, and I believe I have this right, Empire City Toy Sales over on Instagram for hooking me up with this guy a few years ago for a very, very, very good price. $35 shipped to my doorstep. Fresh off the card. You can't go wrong with that. You just can't. It's the most I've ever spent on a single one of these figures, with the exception of maybe some of the ones I got in a lot because I bought some extra accessories to go with them because they were missing them. But as far as buying something outright, not having to buy any extra parts and whatnot, this was by far the most I've ever dropped on a Small Soldiers figure, and I'm really glad that I did. I'm really glad the guy still had it, to be quite honest with you. So there you go. Or girl. We don't discriminate here. But with that being said, I gotta tell you, this is probably my second favorite figure in this line, just because of how crazy he is. So taking a look-see here. He comes with this shield, which clips onto his arm. Very, very securely. Nice, sturdy clip. It's thick enough and flexible enough. I don't think you gotta worry about breaking it. Goes right around the arm. No stress marks or anything. Super, super duper good quality. I think it's like PVC too, just about. So it's got some flex to it. It's got a skull on it, so that's pretty metal. It's got some handles too. Not sure what that's about. And then on this side, it's got a club, which does come out of here. If I can pop this out. That's what she said. Doesn't want to come out very easy. There we go. But he does come with a little club here, which you can put with a Bam Bam figure and have him smack you across the head with it, I guess. But what you can do with this is you can place it in this little loop-de-loop on the side here, and then you can press the button on the back, and I gotta tell you, this has quite a bit of force to it. So be careful with that. You don't want to knock your sister or brother out with that. Or maybe you do. If you do, you are very sadistic. He also has this little radio antenna that plugs onto his back because he's got Alan's dad's radio built into him because poor, is it Slam Fist? And I want to say Punch It was maybe the other one. Tried to fix him. And, well, didn't go so well, did it? Also, when the club's not in there, you can still use the button to make the loop spin around. But his final gimmick is you can take his limbs off. Well, two of them. You can take this limb off, and you can take this off, and you can swap them if you so choose. You can have the foot down here, and you can have the arm up here. But unfortunately, you can't clip the shield to that arm. So, and I gotta tell you, it looks even weirder when you do that. Because that was originally how I had him displayed, because it had the fist here, which has a knife pre-sculpted into it. You can't take that out. And it actually has a little skull on it. So these guys are kind of savage. Decking themselves out with bones and skulls and whatnot. But it just looks a lot weirder that way. So I prefer to put the limb with the fist on it down here, where the leg usually is, because I think this is probably the leg. This part here, it's bent like one anyways. That, or it's a crazy looking arm. Although this kind of looks like an arm too, with the shoulder and the bicep. I'm going to say this is the arm. But plugging that in up there. Would have been cool if you could pop the foot and the fist out and have the foot down here and the fist up here, but probably would look less movie accurate that way. I guess the more messed up the better, right? At least in this case. But after that, you can take the shield and clip it back onto his quote-unquote wrist, question mark. Goes on there nice and secure. And then you can take the club and slide it back into here. I would advise you give it a good little push so it goes in all the way. There you go. Push it past the little kind of groove here, and it will stay in there nice and secure. No problems whatsoever. And a side note, he's got a hand sticking out of his kneecap. That's pretty gnarly. And what's funny is he's got 3 fingers and a thumb on this hand. Then he's got 4 fingers and a thumb on this hand. I believe? Or does he? No, he's got 4 fingers and a thumb on this hand. So, very, very asymmetrical. He's got a boot here. He's got no shoe here. And then just look at his face. He's got like a Phantom of the Opera looking mask. And then he's got wires coming out of his eye, going into his back there. These wires are sometimes lost, so be careful when you're trying to get one. Make sure he's got those. He's got some electrodes sticking out of his head. I guess these being messed up is really the least of his worries. Just look at what they did to his face. He is jacked up. What did old Chip Hazard do to you, buddy? But as far as the rest of his articulation goes, these, of course, rotate. His leg here will rotate a little bit. And then his head will rotate like this. So, again, not a lot. Not really anything. Other than being able to pose him like this. It's pretty much all you're going to get. But at the end of the day, that's not such a bad thing. Because it's still pretty dynamic. Even with no articulation. So, you know what? I'll cut him some slack there. I'll bypass that and let that slide. And he looks really cool. Just kind of hanging out looking, freaky. So with that being said, let's take a look at some comparisons. First up here is Freakenstein, next to the other Gorgonites I've taken a look at on the channel over the course of this month. Got, of course, Archer, who I took a look at first, and then Insaniac, who I took a look at last week. And as you can see, the scaling on these guys is pretty all over the place. I think this is probably good enough. But again, I feel like Archer is a bit smaller than he was in the movie compared to the other Gorgonites. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And last but certainly not least, we have our 2 regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibulus and the MK11 Spawn, who is not towering over everyone because he is shorter than that of Freakenstein's little antenna there. So, ha! You have been dwarfed, Spawn, for once. I mean, he towers over everything else, so he's got to be dwarf sometimes, right? So with that being said, time to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and while this guy may primarily be somewhat a bit of a statue, I still think he's a really cool looking figure, despite the fact there's not a whole lot of action going on with this figure, if you know what I mean. And to be honest, I think he's probably my second favorite figure in this line, just based off of how crazy and wacky of a character design he is. I mean, it's in the name, Freakenstein. He's got a hand sticking out of his knee, he's got a foot for a hand, he's got a fist for a foot, he's got wires coming out of his face, he's got a club that smacks you right in the nose, and a radio antenna sticking out of his back. It's just one of the craziest things I think I've ever reviewed on any of my channels. So for that reason and that reason alone, if you are into the Small Soldiers line, this is definitely one to track down. I'm not just going to say go out and get it, because you can't. It's very much expensive on the aftermarket. Again, I got to give a shout out to, I believe it was Empire City Toy Sales over on Instagram for hooking me up with this guy for a very, very, very reasonable price. Again, I think it was like around 35 bucks shipped or so, fresh off the card. So you can't go wrong with that, especially considering somebody wants $70 for one of these guys loose, missing one of the detachable limbs, no club, no antenna. I don't even know if he's got the tubers coming out of his face. So not too shabby if I say so myself. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Throwback Thursdays. Stay tuned next week. We're going to be taking a look at the final kind of basic figure for the month anyways. I do have more Small Soldiers basic figures, but we're going to be wrapping up the month very, very soon here because Christmas is on the way. But next week, I'm going to be taking a look at Flat Shoes. So with that being said, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And if you're so inclined, please hit that notification bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one, because we got to show that algorithm who's boss, right? And if you haven't already, hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.